Hi everyone, Ed Robertson. Thank you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. We'll be back with a brand new edition of TV Confidential later in the week. In the meantime, please enjoy this clip from a conversation you may have heard before, but probably haven't heard in a long time. Please enjoy.
Hi, this is Lawrence Fleckerbill. You are listening to TV Confidential.
February 7th, 1975, there was a show called Khan.
K-H-A-N
Exclamation point. Yes. You can visualize a punch in the fist accompanied the screen, maybe a little Batman pow added to it.
And it's not Khan as in Ricardo Montalban and William Shatner in Star Trek 2, The Wrath of.
That's very important.
But now you make me want to go, Khan!
This was a show, it was a mid-season replacement starring Khigh Dheigh, best known to television audiences as Wolf Fat, McGarrett's arch-villain in Hawaii Five-0. And also earlier, he was the villain, one of the villains in The Manchurian Candidate, the man behind the brainwashing.
So we're talking about an actor with, really good credits and really strong training, a really wonderful actor.
An accomplished character actor who happened to be Asian American. By all accounts, he was a very interesting man off screen, and that certainly came across in his portrayal of Woe Fat. And because Hawaii Five-0 was one of CBS's top shows in 1975, and because this was the era of detective shows, and every detective show had to have a gimmick. We had a bald detective, we had a heavyweight detective.
We had a sloppy detective. We had a blind detective.
We had a
wheelchair guy.
Yes. So, someone in the network said, let's build a show around Khigh Dheigh and let's do a modern-day Charlie Chan so we'll have an Asian-American detective.
Okay, which sounds like a plausible idea.
Yeah. What happened? Okay, so they ordered 13 episodes and they hired Khigh Dheigh and they start filming, and somewhere between the time they signed him and the time they started filming, Khigh Dheigh actually got hold of the first few scripts. And my understanding was appalled because rather than take it in an interesting direction, they took the worst of the Charlie Chan mythology. So it was you had Khan being very inscrutable, and you had the number one son, and you had all the stereotypes. And it sort of lent to a certain portrayal of Asian Americans in Chinatown culture. It took place in San Francisco, but it was the broader issue.
And Charlie Chan, let's look at the history of those movies. There are, movie channels that will not show those.
Yeah.
I do remember in the 80s some of the, let's say, like the afternoon movie hosts, when we used to have those guys. If they showed a Charlie Chan movie, they were, during the breaks, cutting to commercial, all that, they were really careful to establish historical content and even discuss, those elements, and basically say, we're showing this because, it is, a famous movie, and we always have, a certain amount of time dedicated to this particular genre, and they talked about the historical elements, but they really did pile on the disclaimers very heavily. Yeah. And there was an attempt at a Charlie Chan movie in the 80s, which I don't remember what happened with it. I'm trying to think of the British actor, who was it? Peter Ustinov that played Charlie?
I think it was, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just popping in, right. And I remember trailers, and I don't remember anything beyond that. I did it, shelf, because at this point, you could not do that.
Yeah.
There was a point. But also, take a look at how fast the time changed, because this is 1975. Yeah. Less than 10 years earlier, on Get Smart, you had a character named, was it Harry Wu?
Harry Wu, yeah.
Yeah, but I think people knew, they are mocking the Charlie Chan movie, just like a lot of Get Smart episodes would mock a genre, and I think, that was fine. Peter Sellers played a Charlie Chan character around this same time in Murder by Death, maybe, but again, it is a send-up.
It was broad satire comedy.
Yeah, they are they were mocking
But that
everyone.
was not the case with Chan.
They were trying
This was an attempt at a straightforward dramatic series.
And also having an Asian actor portraying Charlie Chan. Had that been done before?
I do not believe they had. I mean, they had Asian Americans play number one son and number two son, including James Hong and Benson Fong and Kay Luke. They all played the number one son either on television or in the movies.
But in the title role?
No, it was either Werner Oland or J. Carroll Naish.
In these movies also, let's not forget, Charlie Chan had a manservant.
Yes.
That was, if people did not have a problem with the Asian portrayal with Charlie Chan, they definitely had a problem with the manservant role, which the name escapes me right now, but it's... I believe he had the name of a popular state in the South. I also remember later in the 80s, Pat Morita had O'Hara.
Now,
but that was...
that was a more...
a much more enlightened
look.
He was on the heels of the Karate Kid.
Yeah, and I believe Morita had more of a say.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he did. And even there, it did have to be, and so I think this is historically significant. He had the one season where he was the main lead, and then the next season they wanted to give him a partner, kind of in the mold of Tom Selleck or Lee Horsley, to kind of get that look, maybe to get more women to watch or to have somebody for him to work on. So they were tooling it, so you came in with one vision, and then it did get retooled.
Which happens a lot now.
Yeah, so I'm wondering how the con that attracted the talent and then the con that actually wound up getting shot.
Well, the problem is two things. To my knowledge, and believe me, I've looked, no prints of this show appear to exist anywhere.
Yes.
I mean, and
that's pretty incredible. Do you know how many episodes they had in order for 13? How many shot? How many aired?
To my knowledge, I think they shot 8 or 9. They only aired 4 because the Asian American community was particularly in an uproar over the portrayal of the show. Not only the Asian American community, but the star of the show, Khigh Dheigh, was upset with the portrayal. He had his name taken off the show. He appeared on the show, and you have the opening titles, Khan, with the exclamation point.
Yeah.
And you would have the other cast members, Evan Kim as number one son, and Irene Yaling's son, as she played his daughter, and Vic Tayback from Alice was the resident police contact. But Khigh Dheigh insisted on not having his name appear on either the opening credits or the closing credits.
I've never heard of that before.
To my knowledge, that has never happened before or since.
But the show went from February 7th to February 28th.
Right. Now,
then
it's the other thing. Mm-hmm. A number of CBS affiliates, including KPIX in San Francisco, which San Francisco has a huge Asian American...
And it takes place in San
Francisco. KPIX refused to show Khan. Instead, they did local programming from 8 to 9. And my understanding, in other markets, other CBS affiliates refused to show the show as well. Okay, so it wasn't getting play in major markets. The markets that were showing the show weren't getting enough audience reaction because it was up against Sanford and Son and Chico and the Man. I think Chico and the Man.
Yeah, Chico and the Man was
NBC.
Brand new.
Okay, so that was
They were in season 1.
So NBC was number 1 in that time slot, and I think whatever ABC was showing on Friday night, which I think the $6 Million Man was somewhere in that 8 to 9 time slot. I'd have to double check, but so Khan was finishing number 3 in the time slot anyway.
In a time when there were only 3 networks.
In a time when there were only 3 networks, and so in fact, it's not being shown in all the markets. It's not doing well in the markets that's showing, and you're getting a lot of flack about the show, including flack from the star. So all that considered, CBS canceled the show after only 4 episodes. I just happened to, and I just know this because my mind warps that way. For some reason, Patrick McNee was the special guest star in the final episode that aired. Only because Channel 5 just happened to come in just before they picked up the network feed at like 8:59. So you got to see a snippet of the next week's episode of Con, which was not going to be shown in San Francisco. So. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to the TV Confidential podcast, or better yet, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or wherever you listen to our podcast.